Hello, welcome to chapter 12. So today we would look at the introduction to the study of economics. So for our lesson today we have 4 objectives, and objective number 1, we would look at the meaning of economics, and we would look at the 2 main branches of economics, which is microeconomics and macroeconomics. So we shall distinguish between microeconomics and macroeconomics. Also, we would distinguish between positive economics and normative economics. Positive economics and normative economics. And the last aspect of our lesson will be to find out the interdependence between microeconomics and macroeconomics. How are those 2 branches of economics linked together? So that's the 4th objective of our lesson today. So let's begin with the meaning of economics. Before we get into the definition of the term economics, let's look a little at the etymology or the origin of the word economics. Economics comes from a combination of 2 Greek words. The first being oikos and the second being neme. Oikos in Greek means household, and nemen means management. So putting oikos, nemen together, it means household management. So economics stems from a Greek word which means household management. Now there are so many authors in economics who have defined economics in diverse ways. Economics is not limited to the management of the household. Economics stems beyond the households. It stems to businesses. It stems to economies, nations, countries as a whole. So we have so many authors who have given so many definitions of economics. One of those very famous definitions of economics come from one of economists who is known as Professor Lionel Robinson. So let us hear what Professor Lionel Robinson defines economics as. So, Professor Lionel Robinson defines economics as, he says, it is a social science which studies human behavior. He says it's a social science which studies human behavior in relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. He says a social science social science which studies human behavior. So this is the definition according to Professor Lionel Robinson. And he says it is a social science which studies the behavior of human beings as they struggle to meet their ends. As a relationship between the ends and the scarce means which have alternative uses. I'll talk a little bit about this definition before we progress to our next objective. Now, one thing you must note in his definition is that he considers this a social science. He considers economics a social science. Why? Because it deals with the behavior of human beings. He sees it as a social science a science which studies the behavior of human beings, of humans. That's why he calls it a social science. Then he saw that it is a social science which studies human behavior in a relationship between ends and scarce means. What do we mean by ends? Ends represents those things we need and we want, and the scarce means, the means represents the resources which we can use to satisfy our ends. The means which we can use to satisfy our ends. The ends here are our wants and our needs, and the means here represent the resources. The resources are usually scarce. That's why you have it in this definition. So according to Professor Lionel Robinson, economics studies the way human beings behave. And in that sense, he considered it a social science, how they behave when they are trying to satisfy their needs and their wants, which is known as ends. And how do we satisfy our needs, our wants? We use resources that are available to satisfy our needs and our wants. And those resources which we use, we can as well use them for several uses. That's why we have these last two words here, alternative uses. If you don't use a resource to satisfy one need or the other, you can use it for something else. So his definition sums up, gives a very clear summary of what economics is all about. And this definition is not limited to an individual. This definition goes beyond individual, goes beyond households, goes beyond firms, and goes and extends right to the economy and even the world at large. Because as a world, we are also looking for the means to satisfy our ends. Okay. So, economics or economic theory is split into two. We have what we call positive economics and normative economics. So any economic theory falls between these two, normative economics and positive economics. So what is positive economics? What is positive economics? Positive economics is simply that part of economics which studies economic happenings, economic phenomena, which are backed by facts, which are backed by evidences. It is that part of economics which deals with facts that we can see, facts that we can observe, facts that we can record, facts that we can testify of. So, positive economics is that part of economic theory which studies it studies what is about any phenomenon. What is? While normative economics, on the other hand, is that part of economics that studies phenomena in economics about what ought to be or what should be. This is a part of economics that deals with people's opinions. It deals with value judgment. While positive economics deals with facts, normative economics deals with people's opinions. Positive economics deals with facts which can be verified, which can be proven, while normative economics deals with people's opinion, people's value judgment, which depends on the perspective of people. So, positive economics, facts, what is actually happening? What is actually happening in the phenomenon being studied? While normative economics deals with people's opinion, people's value judgment. So this is the two areas upon which economic theory is based. We have the positive economics, which deals with facts, which deals with what is, and we have the normative economics, which deals with what ought to be or what should be. So I can give you a statement in economics which can be clearly considered as a statement of positive economics. Like we can say, for example, taxation gives income to the state. That is a fact. Taxation brings income to the state of any country. That is a fact. But we can say in normative economics, we can say taxation should be a principle which is leveled only to the rich. The poor should not be taxed. That is my opinion. That is an opinion which can be debated upon. So when you hear of normative economics, it deals with statements which can be debated, which can be argued. But positive economics doesn't deal with statements which you can argue. It simply deals with statements which are facts which can be verified. Okay. Economics has two main branches. The first branch is so we have microeconomics and macroeconomics. These are the two main branches of economics, microeconomics and macroeconomics. So we will begin. What is microeconomics? What is microeconomics? Before we get into the definition of microeconomics, the meaning of this word micro means small. So microeconomics is that part of economics which studies the small aspects of the entire economy. Microeconomics studies individual economic agents like individuals, households, firms, or businesses. It studies their behavior and their decisions about consumption, production. That is what microeconomics is about. It studies the behavior of individuals. It studies the behavior of households. That is individual economic agents, how they behave when they are making decisions about what to buy, what to consume, and the determination of prices of goods and services. That is what microeconomics is all about. Now let's talk about macroeconomics. Macroeconomics, on the other hand, deals with the entire economy. It deals with the economy. It looks at the economy from a holistic approach, from the whole economic perspective. That's why we say in macroeconomics, it studies aggregates, putting all the economic agents together. That's what we mean by macroeconomics. It studies the behavior of the economy as a whole. That's why in macroeconomics, we study concepts like inflation, employment, etc. These are all concepts that concern the economy as a whole. So, sometimes you would hear economists call microeconomy the price theory. Why? Because it studies the determination of price in the markets. While you would hear some will call macroeconomics the theory of income and employment, because this macroeconomic studies the aggregates, how the income of the whole economy is determined, how all factors of production are put together. It studies the interaction of the economy from a holistic picture, from the economy as a whole. While this looks at single individuals, looks at single businesses, looks at single firms, while in macroeconomics, it looks at all the businesses, it looks at all the households, it looks at all the individuals put together. That's why macroeconomics is holistic, while microeconomics looks at it only from the smaller perspective, from one economic agent at the time. So it is necessary for us to clearly get the differences between microeconomics and macroeconomics. So let's look at those differences. So the differences So, in order to differentiate between microeconomics and macroeconomics, we would look at these differences from 5 aspects. So, the first aspect we would look at is from the scale of study. The scale of study. Microeconomics is studying the economy from a small scale, from individuals or individual households or individual businesses, while macroeconomics is a study of the entire economy, the study of all individuals, the study of all households, the study of all businesses. The next aspect where we use to distinguish between micro and macroeconomics is what we know as the field of study. Now, microeconomics is less broad. The field of study for microeconomics is limited, while that for macroeconomics is very broad. Microeconomics studies the decisions of individuals. It studies the decision of individuals in how to allocate their limited resources to satisfy their needs, while macroeconomics looks at the decision of the economy as a whole, how to satisfy everyone in the economy, how to make sure everyone in the economy is having income. It also looks at how the economy in general is growing, not just how a single business is growing, but is looking at how all businesses in the country are growing. So macroeconomics is a broad field of study, while microeconomics is more narrow. Microeconomics can study how a single business can grow, while macroeconomics will study how all businesses in the country are growing. The next aspect we'll look at is the focus on price and income. Microeconomics focuses on price determination in the market, while macroeconomics focuses on the income in general of the country. So before we look at the next, I would just like to talk again once more. For the third point, which we just saw here, the focus on price and income. I said microeconomics focuses on price determination of goods and services in the market, of different goods and services in the market. But macroeconomics studies the determination of income within the entire country. The next aspect of differentiation is the method of study. The method of study. Microeconomics adopts what we call partial equilibrium. So microeconomics adopts what we call partial equilibrium, while macroeconomics adopts what we call the quasi-general equilibrium. The quasi-general equilibrium. So when we talk about partial equilibrium, we are looking at the equilibrium within a limited section of the economy, only part of the economy, while quasi-general equilibrium is looking at the equilibrium of the entire economy. Last, analytical study. In microeconomics, it is an analytical study of the small sections of the economy. How do households, how do individuals, how do businesses decide what to buy, how to buy? How do they come to their conclusions? How do they determine what to consume and what to produce? But in macroeconomics, we look at factors like what is the effect of taxes on savings? What is the effect of policies on the behavior of businesses? So that is where the analysis focuses on. The general analysis is for macroeconomics. How does policies by government or the state affect the economy as a whole? While in microeconomics, it is looking at how their decisions affect their personal lives, how their decision affects the businesses, how it affects individuals, or what we call individual economic agents. So what then is the importance What is the importance of microeconomics and macroeconomics? What is the importance? Why do we have to concentrate on understanding these two separate branches of economics, microeconomics and macroeconomics? Our understanding of microeconomics gives us knowledge which can be applied in several sectors or several aspects of our economic life. For instance, knowledge of microeconomics helps us have deep understanding about agriculture, So all the knowledge which we learn from microeconomics, helps us have an understanding of agriculture, labor, economics, and consumer behavior. While knowledge we get from macroeconomics, helps us to apply our knowledge in areas like international trade, helps us to understand. Macroeconomics gives us knowledge which helps us to understand international trade, employment, and the effect of taxes. One thing we should note as we come to the end of this our lesson is that microeconomics, though it is different from macroeconomics, they are interdependent. They depend on each other. They are linked with each other. They are not separate. They are mutually inclusive. Therefore, if we have an understanding of the way individuals behave, then we will have an understanding of the way the economy behaves. Let me just give an example. The study of the effect of taxes will fall under macroeconomics. Now, when macroeconomics affects the way businesses save, that is microeconomics. And if businesses no longer save because taxes were too high, it will also affect the general growth of the economy, which comes back to macroeconomics. So you see how those two branches of economics are linked with one another. They are not separate. The studies of microeconomics has an effect on macroeconomics, and macroeconomics also has an effect on microeconomics. Like I just said, if there is a policy to increase taxes, it will mean businesses will have very little to save. And when businesses have very little to save, there will be little growth of the entire economy. When we are saying taxes, we are talking about macroeconomics. And when it affects the savings of business, we are talking about microeconomics, because we are looking at how the increase in tax is affecting one business. But when it affects one business and all the other businesses in the economy, then we are now looking at what? Macroeconomics. Thank you.